The alarm screamed through every corner of Research Station Omega-7. Dr. Hana dropped her coffee cup and ran toward the command center. Her heart pounded in her chest. Emergency alarms never went off on the station. Never. They orbited a neutron star on the edge of civilized space, far from any danger. Captain Yule stood in the command center, his face tight with worry. Around him, screens showed a small pod drifting toward their station. The pod was damaged, leaking fuel into the empty space around them. "What is it?" Hana asked, pushing her black hair behind her ears. Yule turned to look at her. His eyes were dark with concern. "A survival pod. It came from a diplomatic vessel that got too close to the stellar anomaly. The ship is gone. This pod is all that survived." Hana looked at the screen. The pod was small and old, barely holding together. "Are there survivors?" "One," Yule said quietly. "But there's a problem." He pressed a button and another screen lit up. Hana felt her breath catch in her throat. Inside the pod, something moved. Something big. She could see 6 limbs covered in crystalline scales that reflected the emergency lights. The creature was massive, filling almost the entire pod. Its scales were deep purple and black like a midnight sky. "Is that what I think it is?" Hana whispered. "A Vractal," Yule confirmed. "Yes." The word sent a chill through the command center. Everyone knew about the Vractal. They came from Vrakta Prime, a death world where only the strongest survived. They were apex predators, hunters that could survive in the vacuum of space. They had razor-sharp claws made of biological crystal. They hunted in packs and never stopped once they caught a scent. Stories spread through the galaxy about Vractal attacks. Colony worlds destroyed, ships torn apart. No one had ever successfully kept a Vractal contained. They were too strong, too smart, too dangerous. "We need to refuse docking," someone said from the back of the room. It was Ambassador Veshkar, the Trill diplomat assigned to the station. His insect-like body clicked nervously. "We cannot bring that thing aboard." Yule shook his head. "It's galactic law. We have to rescue survivors." "That is not a survivor," Veshkar hissed. "That is a monster. It will kill us all." Hana moved closer to the screen. She studied the creature carefully. It was thrashing inside the pod, hitting the walls with its powerful limbs. But something about the movement felt wrong. She had spent 12 years studying predatory species from across the galaxy. This wasn't the movement of a creature preparing to attack. "Look at its left rear limb," Hana said, pointing at the screen. "See how it keeps that one pulled close to its body? And watch its thrashing. It's not random. It only gets violent when the pod shifts and puts pressure on that side." The others stared at the screen. Hana was right. The creature's movements had a pattern. "It's injured," Hana continued, "and probably in terrible pain. That's why it's so aggressive. Pain makes predators more dangerous, not less," Veshkar argued. His antenna twitched with fear. "Pain makes anything dangerous," Hana said softly. "But that doesn't mean we should kill it without trying to help." Yule looked between Hana and the ambassador. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. Finally he spoke. "Bring the pod into Containment Bay 3. Full energy barriers. No one gets close until we know what we're dealing with." Veshkar made an angry clicking sound but said nothing. The decision was made. 2 hours later, Hana stood in the observation room above Containment Bay 3. The pod had been brought inside and carefully opened by robotic arms. The Vractal had stumbled out, and now it stood in the center of the bay, surrounded by shimmering energy barriers. It was even bigger than Hana had thought. Standing on its 6 legs, it was nearly 3 meters tall. Its crystalline scales caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. 3 eyes, arranged in a triangle on its angular head, looked around the bay with obvious fear and anger. The creature hissed, a sound that made the windows vibrate. Then it charged at the energy barrier. The barrier held, but just barely. Warning lights flashed. The Vractal hit the barrier again and again, each impact making the energy flicker. "The barriers won't hold much longer," said Dr. Minji, Hana's colleague and closest friend on the station. She was monitoring the power levels with worried eyes. "If it keeps this up, we'll have to increase power to maximum." "That will hurt it," Hana said. "The feedback will be painful. Better than it breaking free and killing everyone on this level," Minji replied. She wasn't being cruel. She was just being practical. Hana watched the Vractal carefully. Yes, it was hitting the barriers, but she noticed something. Each time it charged, it came from the same angle. Each time it avoided putting weight on that injured limb. "It's terrified," Hana said quietly. It's a Vrakthul, Minji reminded her. Terrified or not, it's deadly. Below them, more people arrived in the observation room. Security Chief Jay came in with his team, all of them carrying weapons. Ambassador Veshkar returned with 2 other council representatives. Everyone wanted to see the monster. We need to make a decision, Veshkar announced to the room. The Galactic Council has been notified. They are debating what to do, but most agree. This creature is too dangerous. It should be terminated before it hurts someone. You mean killed? Hana said, turning to face him. Say what you mean. You want to kill it. I want to protect this station, Veshkar replied coldly. That thing has killed thousands. Its species has destroyed colony worlds. There is no reason to keep it alive. It hasn't killed anyone here, Hana argued. It's hurt and scared. Look at it. Really look at it. The room fell silent. Everyone watched the Vrakthul below. It had stopped charging the barriers. Now it paced back and forth, that injured limb held carefully off the ground. Its 3 eyes darted around, looking for escape routes that didn't exist. Captain Yule entered the observation room. He looked tired. The council has made their preliminary decision. The Vrakthul will be terminated in 72 hours unless someone can provide a compelling reason to keep it alive. I can, Hana said immediately. Everyone turned to look at her. Give me those 72 hours. Let me try to stabilize it, treat its injuries. Let me show you that it's not just a monster. Absolutely not, Veshkar said. That is insane. I won't get close to it, Hana promised. I'll work through the barriers. I just want to try. If I'm wrong, you can terminate it as planned. But if I'm right, we might learn something important. Yule studied her face for a long moment. He had known Hana for 5 years. She was careful, smart, and never took unnecessary risks. If she said she could do this safely, he believed her. 72 hours, Yule said finally. But the moment I think you're in danger, we end the experiment. Understood? Hana nodded. Relief flooded through her. Understood. Veshkar made a disgusted sound. This is typical human behavior. Always showing mercy to things that will kill you. Your species never learns. Hana looked down at the Vrakthul. It had curled up in the far corner of the containment bay, trying to make itself small, trying to protect that injured limb. It looked exhausted and alone. Maybe, Hana said quietly. Mercy is exactly what it needs. She left the observation room and headed for her quarters. She had 72 hours to save a life. She needed to start planning immediately. Behind her, the others continued to argue, but Hana wasn't listening anymore. Below, in the containment bay, the Vrakthul watched the humans through the barriers. Its 3 eyes tracked their movements. It didn't understand what they were saying, but it understood one thing clearly. It was trapped, injured, and completely alone. Its pack was gone, lost in the stellar anomaly that had destroyed their ship. For a Vrakthul, being alone was worse than death. The creature curled tighter into the corner and made a low, sad sound that no one heard. It was the sound of a Vrakthul mourning its lost pack. In her quarters, Hana pulled up every file about Vrakthul biology she could find. There wasn't much. Most species didn't study Vrakthul closely. They just avoided them or killed them on sight. But Hana would study this one. She would understand it. And maybe, just maybe, she would prove that even the galaxy's most feared predator deserved compassion. She had 72 hours to change everyone's mind. The clock was already ticking. The first day was the hardest. Hana arrived at Containment Bay 3 early in the morning, carrying a small bag with her tablet, some water, and a simple meal. She wore comfortable clothes, nothing that would restrict her movement if she needed to run. Not that running would help against a Vrakthul, but old habits were hard to break. The observation room was empty except for one security guard monitoring the cameras. He looked at Hana like she was crazy. Maybe she was. I'm going down to the bay floor, Hana told him. The guard's eyes went wide. Dr. Hana, that's not safe. The creature is still extremely aggressive. The barriers are between us, Hana reminded him. I'll be fine. She took the elevator down to the containment bay floor before he could argue more. Her hands shook slightly as the doors opened, but she forced herself to walk confidently into the large white room. The Vrakthul was awake. It stood in the center of its containment area, all 3 eyes locked on Hana the moment she entered. The creature's crystalline scales shifted colors, darkening to a deep red. Hana's research told her this was a threat display. She stopped walking about 5 meters from the energy barrier. The Vrakthul hissed, a bone-shaking sound that echoed through the bay. It took one aggressive step forward, then stopped, clearly recognizing the barrier. Hana slowly sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs and placed her tablet beside her. Then she did something that felt completely unnatural. She looked away from the Vrakthul, turning her gaze to the side. In human culture, looking away seemed weak. But Hana had read everything she could find about predator behavior across dozens of species. Direct eye contact almost always meant challenge or threat. Looking away showed she wasn't challenging the creature. The Vrakthul made another hissing sound, but this one was shorter, confused. Hana kept her eyes averted. She pulled out her water bottle and took a slow drink. Then she opened her tablet and began reading her reports out loud, her voice calm and steady. Current station status. All systems normal. Temperature in Sector 7 is slightly elevated. Maintenance has been notified. She continued reading boring station reports for an hour. The Vrakthul watched her the entire time, occasionally shifting its weight, always keeping that injured limb protected. In the observation room above, Dr. Minji watched with growing concern. Security Chief Jay had joined her along with several other crew members who wanted to see the crazy human doctor. "She's just sitting there," Jay said, confused. "What is she doing?" "Making herself predictable," Minji answered. She understood Hana's methods better than most. "The creature doesn't know what to expect from us. Everything here is strange and frightening. Hana is showing it that she's not a threat by being boring and consistent. That's your friend's brilliant plan? To be boring?" Minji smiled slightly. "Just watch." By the afternoon of the first day, the Fractal had stopped hissing when Hana moved. It still watched her carefully, but the aggressive red coloring in its scales had faded back to purple and black. Hana ate her lunch in the bay, still sitting in the same spot. She chewed slowly, making no sudden movements. The Fractal tilted its head, watching her eat with obvious curiosity. When she finished, Hana noticed something. The food that had been left for the Vrakthul the previous night was untouched. It was standard nutrient paste, the same thing provided to most species when their dietary needs were unknown. Safe, nutritious, and completely unappetizing. Hana stood up slowly and walked to the observation room, leaving her bag behind. The Vrakthul tracked her movement but didn't react aggressively. "It hasn't eaten," Hana told Minji when she reached the observation room. "Maybe it's not hungry," Minji suggested. "Or maybe we're feeding it the wrong food." Hana pulled up the biological files on her tablet. "Look, Vrakthul are obligate carnivores. They hunt live prey on their homeworld. They probably won't recognize nutrient paste as food. You want to give a predator live prey?" Jay asked from behind them. "That seems like a terrible idea." "It's starving," Hana said firmly. "How can we expect it to be calm when it's in pain and hungry?" She put in a request to the station's hydroponics bay. They raised small fish-like creatures for the station's food supply. Within an hour, Hana had a container with 6 live fish swimming in shallow water. The Vrakthul watched with intense focus as Hana approached the barrier again. She was carrying the container carefully. When she reached the control panel, she used the robotic arm system to move the container through a small opening in the barrier. The moment the container was inside the containment area, everything changed. The Vrakthul's body language shifted completely. Its scales lightened to an almost silver color. Its 3 eyes focused on the swimming fish with laser precision. For the first time since arriving on the station, the creature looked alert and interested instead of frightened and aggressive. Then it moved. The Vrakthul was fast, faster than anything Hana had ever seen. It crossed the containment area in less than a second. Its crystalline claws struck with perfect accuracy. In moments, all 6 fish were caught and consumed. When it was done, the Vrakthul made a sound Hana hadn't heard before. It was a low, rumbling purr that vibrated through its entire body. The creature's scales rippled with bands of lighter color. "Did it just purr?" Jay asked from the observation room, his voice carrying through the speakers. "I think so," Hana said, amazed. She looked up at the cameras. "Minji, are you recording this?" "Every second," Minji confirmed. The Vrakthul turned its attention back to Hana. It moved closer to the barrier, not aggressively, but cautiously. It lowered its head slightly and made a soft chirping sound. Hana felt a smile spread across her face. This was progress. Real progress. She spent the rest of the day in the bay. The Vrakthul didn't sleep, but it did rest, settling into a more relaxed position. It kept watching Hana, but now there was curiosity in its gaze instead of pure fear. By the second day, word had spread through the station. Dr. Hana was taming the Vrakthul. People came to the observation room to watch, though most didn't stay long. Watching someone sit quietly and read reports wasn't exactly exciting. But Ambassador Veshkar came, and he watched for hours with his compound eyes reflecting worry. "This is dangerous," he told Minji. "She's teaching it to associate humans with food. When it breaks free, it will hunt us." "If it wanted to hunt us, it would be acting very differently," Minji replied. "Hana knows what she's doing." On the morning of the second day, Hana brought more fish. This time, she held the container at the barrier and waited. The Vrakthul approached, moving that injured limb with obvious difficulty. It stopped just on the other side of the energy field, close enough that Hana could see her reflection in its crystalline scales. "You're hurt," Hana said softly, knowing the creature couldn't understand her words. "That leg is badly injured. It's causing you a lot of pain, isn't it?" The Vrakthul tilted its head, studying her face. Its three eyes blinked in sequence top to bottom. Hana placed the fish container into the transfer system. But before sending it through, she did something risky. She held up her hand, palm out, and pressed it gently against the outside of the barrier. The Vrakthul stared at her hand. Then slowly it raised one of its front limbs and pressed its crystalline claw against the barrier from the other side. They couldn't touch through the energy field, but the gesture was clear. Connection, communication, trust. "Good," Hana whispered. "That's very good." She sent the fish through. The Vrakthul ate, but this time it didn't devour them frantically. It ate calmly, almost politely, as if it understood that food would keep coming now. That afternoon, Hana made a formal request to Captain Yule. She wanted permission to examine the Vrakthul's injury up close. Without barriers between them, the request caused chaos. Security wanted to say no immediately. Veshkar called it suicide. Even Minji tried to talk Hana out of it, but Yule looked at the video footage from the past 2 days. He saw how the creature's behavior had changed, how it responded to Hana specifically, how it had pressed its claw to the barrier in that moment of connection. "You can examine it," Yule said finally, "but you'll be wearing a protective suit with a personal shield generator. And Jay will have a tranquilizer ready. At the first sign of danger, we extract you immediately." Hana nodded. "Thank you, Captain." "Don't make me regret this," Yule said quietly. On the morning of the third day, Hana prepared to enter the containment area. She wore a lightweight protective suit with a small shield generator on her belt. It wouldn't stop a Vrakthul if the creature really wanted to kill her, but it made everyone else feel better. She carried a medical kit in one hand. Her other hand was empty, open, non-threatening. The entire station watched the live feed. Everyone stopped working. This was the moment that would determine the Vrakthul's fate. If this went wrong, the creature would be terminated within the hour. Hana stepped through the barrier opening. For the first time, nothing separated her from the apex predator. The Vrakthul was pressed against the far wall. Its scales had turned dark red again, the threat display color. It made a low warning hiss. Hana sat down on the floor just like she had on the first day. She set the medical kit beside her and looked away, showing the creature she wasn't a challenge. "I know you're scared," she said softly. "I'm scared too, but I want to help." Hana worked on the injured limb for 2 hours. The wound was worse than she had feared. A deep burn covered the lower section of the leg, likely from the stellar anomaly that had destroyed the diplomatic vessel. The burn had become infected, and the surrounding scales were cracked and damaged. The Vrakthul stayed perfectly still while Hana worked. It made small sounds of discomfort, little chirps and whistles, but it never pulled away. It watched her with all 3 eyes, tracking every movement of her hands. "I'm sorry this hurts," Hana said as she cleaned the wound, "but the infection is bad. I need to get it all out." The creature made a longer sound, a series of chirps that rose and fell in pitch. Hana paused, listening carefully. That hadn't sounded like a pain response. It had sounded almost like language. When she finished treating the wound and wrapped it in sterile bandages, the Vrakthul pulled its leg back and examined Hana's work. Then it made that deep purring sound again, the one from when it had eaten the fish. Its scales rippled with lighter colors. "You're welcome," Hana said softly. The Vrakthul moved closer. Before Hana could react, It reached out with one of its front limbs and very gently touched her shoulder with its crystalline claw. The touch was feather-light, careful not to hurt. In the observation room, people gasped. Jay's hand went to his weapon. But Minji stopped him. "Wait," she said. "Look at the body language. That's not aggression." The Vracthal withdrew its claw and settled down into a resting position. It kept watching Hana, but now its whole demeanor was different. Relaxed, calm, almost peaceful. Hana slowly stood up and gathered her medical supplies. "I'm going now," she told the creature. "But I'll come back tomorrow. I promise." The Vracthal made another series of chirping sounds. This time Hana was certain. Those sounds had structure, pattern, meaning. When she exited the containment area, Hana went straight to Dr. Day, the station's linguistic specialist. Day was a quiet man in his 50s who had spent his career studying alien languages across the galaxy. "I need you to listen to something," Hana said, pulling up the audio recordings from her time in the containment bay. They sat in Day's small office, surrounded by screens showing sound wave patterns and translation algorithms. Hana played the recordings of the Vracthal's vocalizations. Day leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with concentration. "Play that section again," he said, pointing to a specific part of the waveform. Hana replayed it. The Vracthal's chirps and whistles filled the room. "This is extraordinary," Day said quietly. He began pulling up files from the station's xenolinguistic database. Most species dismissed Vracthal vocalizations as animal sounds, predator calls, but look at this pattern. He showed Hana a screen full of complex waveforms. There's grammatical structure here. Consistent phonemes. This isn't just noise. This is language. Hana felt her heart race. "Can you translate it?" "Not yet," Day admitted. "But with more samples, with time to analyze the patterns, maybe. We need to record everything it says. Every sound. And we need context. We need to know what situations produce which sounds." For the next 3 days, Hana and Day worked together. Hana spent hours with the Vracthal, talking to it, bringing it food, treating its injury. She recorded everything. Every chirp, every whistle, every crystal chime sound the creature made when its scales vibrated in certain ways. Day analyzed it all, building a database of sounds and matching them to situations. It was slow work, tedious and exhausting, but piece by piece a picture began to emerge. The Vracthal had been trying to communicate since the moment it arrived. The station just hadn't been listening. On the 6th day, Day called Hana to his office with urgent excitement in his voice. When she arrived, he was pacing back and forth, his hands shaking slightly. "I've got something," he said. "It's rough, very rough, but I think I can translate some of the early recordings, the ones from when it first arrived." He pulled up audio from the Vracthal's first hours in containment, when it had been thrashing against the barriers. Day played the sound, then brought up text on the screen. The translation was basic, probably missing nuance, but the meaning was clear enough. "Hurt, alone. Where is Pack? Why cage?" Hana sat down heavily in a chair. It was asking questions. "Yes," Day confirmed. He played another section from later that first day. "Want home? Want Pack pain? Why pain?" "Everyone thought it was just an angry animal," Hana whispered. But it was scared and confused. It was asking for help and no one understood. Day nodded grimly. "There's more. A lot more. The Vracthal has been trying to communicate with us this entire time." They brought their findings to Captain Yule immediately. Within an hour, the entire senior staff was gathered in the conference room, listening to the translated recordings. "This changes everything," Minji said, her voice filled with emotion. "This isn't just an intelligent predator. This is a person who has been suffering alone because we couldn't understand them." Ambassador Veshikar was less convinced. "Translation software makes mistakes. This could be coincidence, patterns that seem like language but aren't." "I thought the same thing," Day said. "So I ran verification tests. The grammatical structures are too consistent to be coincidence. And watch this." He played a more recent recording from just that morning. The Vracthal had been eating the fish Hana brought. After eating, it had made a specific series of sounds. Based on the contextual analysis, I believe this translates roughly as "thank you" or "gratitude for food," Day explained. "The Vracthal has been thanking Dr. Hana every time she feeds it." The room fell silent. Even Veshkar seemed shaken by this information. "Can we talk back to it?" Yul asked. "Can we use this translation to communicate?" Theoretically, yes, Day said, but it will be crude. Like speaking to a human using only a few dozen words from a dictionary. We can communicate basic concepts, but complex ideas will be difficult. Start with something simple, Hana suggested. Ask its name. Ask if it understands us. Day spent the rest of the day preparing. He created a simple translation program that could convert basic Korean or standard Galactic into Vracthal vocalizations. It wouldn't sound exactly right, the program using synthesized approximations of the sounds, but hopefully it would be close enough. The next morning, Hana entered the containment bay with a small speaker device. The Vracthal greeted her with the chirping sound that Day said meant something like, "Hello" or "Welcome Pack." Hana sat down in her usual spot. "Today is special," she told the creature. "Today we really talk." She activated the speaker. It made a series of chirps and whistles, the synthesized version of Vracthal language. The translation was simple. "We hear you. We understand. You are not alone." The Vracthal's reaction was immediate and dramatic. It stood up so fast that Hana flinched. Its scales flashed through a rainbow of colors. It moved right up to where Hana sat and made a long series of urgent sounds. Dai's voice came through Hana's earpiece. "It's saying, I think it's saying, you speak? You understand? Pack hears me?" Hana used the speaker again. "Yes, we speak, we hear. What is your name?" The Vracthal made another sound, a complex series of chimes and whistles that the computer couldn't quite reproduce. Day worked on it for a moment, then said, "The direct translation doesn't work in our languages, but the closest meaning is something like wind that moves through crystal caves." "It's poetic," Hana thought for a moment. "In Korean we have a word for wind, baram. Can I call you baram?" She used the speaker to play the Vracthal translation. The creature tilted its head, considering. Then it made a sound that was clearly affirmative. "Baram," Hana repeated, smiling. "It's nice to really meet you." Baram made the purring sound louder than ever before. Then he began to speak, a long stream of chirps and whistles. Day worked frantically to translate. "He's telling us what happened to his ship," Day said through the earpiece. "The diplomatic vessel was on a peaceful mission. They were trying to establish trade relations with the outer colonies, but they detected escape pods near the stellar anomaly, other ships in distress. They went to help." Baram continued speaking and Dai continued translating. The story that emerged was heartbreaking. The Vracthal ship had been trying to rescue survivors when the anomaly expanded unexpectedly. The ship was caught in the gravitational shear. The crew, Baram's pack, had loaded him into the survival pod and launched it. They sacrificed themselves to save him. "He's young," Day said quietly. "Very young by Vracthal standards. Barely an adult. He was a junior crew member. This was his first mission off his home world." Hana felt tears on her cheeks. "Ask him about his injury." Through the speaker, she posed the question. Baram touched his bandaged leg and responded. "He says he got burned trying to save someone from a damaged escape pod." Day translated. "He almost had them, but the anomaly pulled both the pod and the person away. He couldn't save them. He says he failed." "No," Hana said firmly, both out loud and through the speaker. "You are brave. You tried to help. You are not failure. You are hero." Baram's scales shifted to colors Hana hadn't seen before, soft pinks and warm golds. Through the translation, he said something that made Hana's throat tight with emotion. "He says you are the first person who has treated him like pack since he lost his crew." Day translated. "He says humans are strange but kind. He asks if you will be his pack now since his old pack is gone." The deadline hung over the station like a storm cloud. 1 week. 7 days before the Galactic Authority would come to take Baram away to a facility that everyone knew was really just a prison. The mortality rate at that facility was 90%. Most creatures died within months of arrival, killed by the necessary containment measures. Hana refused to accept it. She spent every waking hour with Baram, using the translation device to talk with him. Every conversation made her more certain that sending him away would be a death sentence, not just for his body but for his spirit. "Tell me about your pack," Hana said one morning, sitting cross-legged on the floor of the containment bay. Through the speaker, her words became chirps and whistles. Baram settled down across from her, his injured leg stretched out. The bandages were cleaner now, and the wound was healing faster than expected. Reduced stress, Hana's medical reports showed. Baram was healing because he felt safe. Bahram began to speak, his voice creating musical patterns. The translation came through Hana's earpiece from Day, who was monitoring upstairs. My pack was 23, Bahram said. Strong hunters, wise elders, young ones like me learning. We lived in crystal caves on Homeworld. Together always. Hunt together. Eat together. Sleep and pile for warmth. Pack is everything. Pack is life. You must miss them very much, Hana said gently. Miss is small word, Bahram replied. Fractal alone is fractal dying, not body dying. Spirit dying. I feel myself fading each day without pack warmth. But then you come. You bring food. You fix hurt leg. You speak to me. You are strange, pack, but pack still. Hana felt her heart breaking. She had learned enough about fractal biology to understand what Bahram meant. Fractal were deeply social creatures. Isolation caused them severe psychological trauma. The aggressive behavior that made them so feared was often just the desperation of pack animals torn from their families. I won't let them take you away, Hana promised. How can you stop? Bahram asked. You are small, human. They are many. They have power. I'll find a way, Hana said. But even as she said it, she wondered if she was lying. That afternoon, Hana went to Captain Yule's office. Minji came with her for support. Yule was reviewing supply reports, but he set them aside when the two women entered. I know what you're going to ask, Yule said before Hana could speak, and I don't know if I can help. Bahram is healing, Hana said urgently. The wound is responding well to treatment. His aggressive behavior is completely gone. He's communicative, intelligent, and peaceful. There's no reason to send him to that facility. The council disagrees, Yule said. He looked tired. They've received reports from dozens of species about Vracthul attacks. They see Bahram as a temporary anomaly. They think once he's healthy, his true nature will emerge. His true nature is what we're seeing now, Hana argued. A social creature that needs pack connection. Everything else was just trauma and fear. You might be right, Yule admitted. But I'm one captain on one station. The council has made their decision. Then change their minds, Minji said quietly. Show them what we've learned. Prove that Bahram is different. Yule leaned back in his chair. How? Hana took a deep breath. She had been thinking about this for days. Let me take Bahram out of the containment bay. Let him interact with the station. Show the council that he can exist peacefully in a mixed-species environment. Absolutely not, Yule said immediately. That's too dangerous, is it? Hana challenged. We've been wrong about everything else. We thought he was mindlessly aggressive. We were wrong. We thought he was just an animal. We were wrong. Maybe we're wrong about the danger too. If you're wrong about this one, people die, Yule said. If we do nothing, Bahram dies, Hana replied. Guaranteed. At least my plan gives him a chance. Yule looked between the two women. Finally he sighed. Small steps. Controlled environment. At the first sign of trouble, Bahram goes back in the containment bay and we never try again. Understood. Understood, Hana agreed quickly before he could change his mind. The next day, they moved Bahram to a larger enclosure. It was one of the cargo bays converted to a training area. Bahram could move around freely, but doors sealed the area from the rest of the station. Security cameras covered every angle. Bahram explored the space cautiously, his claws clicking on the metal floor. He examined everything, his three eyes taking in every detail. When he reached the far wall, he made a happy chirping sound. More space, the translation said. Good space, can run. Can practice hunt moves. Thank you, Pack Leader Hana. Hana smiled. Pack Leader was what Bahram called her now. In Vractul culture, the Pack Leader was the one who made sure everyone ate and stayed safe. To Bahram, that was exactly what Hana did. Over the next 3 days, they introduced new elements to Bahram's environment. Climbing structures, different textures, puzzle toys that they designed to test Bahram's problem-solving skills. Bahram excelled at everything. He was curious, playful even. He invented games for himself. Once he spent an hour stacking storage containers into elaborate towers, then knocking them down with his tail. His scales flashed with bright, happy colors the entire time. He's like a kid, Minji observed, watching from the observation area. A really big, really dangerous kid, but still, he plays. He has fun. Most intelligent species play, Hana said. It's how they learn. The fact that Bahram plays is more evidence that he's not just a mindless predator. Security Chief Jay had been watching Bahram carefully for days. He was the one who had to sign off on any expansion of Bahram's freedom, and he took the responsibility seriously. but even Jay had to admit that Barum seemed harmless. I wouldn't go that far, Jay said when Minji mentioned it. He's not harmless. He's choosing to be gentle. That's different, but it does show control and intelligence. On the fourth day, disaster struck. Not from Barum, but from the station itself. A fire broke out in one of the laboratories adjacent to the cargo bay where Barum was exercising. Someone had left experimental equipment running overnight, and it had overheated. The fire spread quickly through the lab's oxygen-rich atmosphere. The automated fire suppression systems activated, but something went wrong. The emergency bulkheads that should have sealed the lab failed to close. Smoke began pouring into the cargo bay where Barum was located. Worse, Hana and two other researchers, including Minji, were in the observation room attached to the cargo bay. The fire blocked their exit. They were trapped. Alarms screamed through the station. Captain Yule was in the command center immediately, pulling up camera feeds. He watched in horror as smoke filled the cargo bay. "Get emergency teams there now," he shouted. "We have people trapped." In the cargo bay, Hana covered her mouth with her sleeve. The smoke was thick and black, burning her eyes and throat. She could barely see. Minji was coughing violently beside her. The third researcher, a young man named Taiho, had already collapsed. Through the smoke, Hana saw Barum. The Vrakthul's biology was adapted for harsh environments. He could tolerate the smoke much better than humans could. His three eyes cut through the darkness, and he moved with purpose toward the observation room. The door to the observation room was jammed. The heat had warped the metal frame. Barum examined it for only a second before he drove his crystalline claws into the door's edge. The metal screamed in protest, but Barum was strong. He tore the door off its hinges with raw power. Hana tried to speak to tell him to save himself, but she couldn't stop coughing. Her vision was going dark around the edges. Barum moved into the observation room. He gently picked up Taiho in two of his limbs, cradling the unconscious man against his crystalline chest. Then he used his other limbs to guide Hana and Minji, pushing them toward the emergency exit on the far side of the cargo bay. A support beam fell from the ceiling, weakened by the fire. It would have crushed Minji, but Barum was faster. He positioned his armored body over her, and the beam crashed against his scales instead. Barum made a sound of pain but didn't move until Minji was safe. Through the smoke and confusion, Barum led all three humans to the emergency exit. He used his claws to manually override the locked door, exposing the corridor beyond where the air was clear. Captain Yule arrived with the emergency team just as Barum was setting Taiho down gently in the corridor. The young researcher was unconscious but breathing. Minji was coughing but conscious. Hana was somewhere in between. Medical teams rushed forward to help the humans. Barum stepped back, his scales dark with soot and ash. He had a burn mark on his shoulder where the falling beam had hit him, but he seemed otherwise unhurt. Yule stared at the Vrakthul. Barum stared back. Then Barum made a series of sounds. The translation device that Hana had dropped was picked up by one of the medics. It translated Barum's words, "Pack safe? Pack leader Hana alive?" "Yes," Yule said, gesturing to where the medics were treating Hana. "She's alive. Because of you?" Barum's scales shifted to warm golden colors. "Good, Pack protects Pack. This is the way." In the following hours, as the fire was extinguished and the damage assessed, the story of what happened spread through the station. The security footage was reviewed 100 times. Every angle showed the same thing. Barum had saved 3 human lives without hesitation, putting himself in danger to protect them. Ambassador Veshkar watched the footage in silence. When it finished, he spoke quietly. "This changes things." "Yes, Capti." The transport ship was 12 hours away when Ambassador Soman arrived at the station. She came unannounced, stepping off a fast courier vessel with a small team of diplomats and lawyers. Soman was in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was one of Earth's senior ambassadors, someone who had negotiated treaties with a dozen alien species. Captain Yule met her at the docking bay personally. "Ambassador Soman, this is unexpected. What brings you here?" Soman smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had come to fight. "I'm here to save a life, Captain, and possibly to change the course of galactic history." "Where is Dr. Hana?" Within an hour, Soman had reviewed everything. The medical reports, the translation logs, the security footage of the fire. She watched the video of Barum saving the 3 humans 5 times in a row, taking notes on her tablet. "This is good," she said finally. "This is very good. But we need more. We need to make an argument so strong that the council cannot ignore it." "What kind of argument?" Hana asked. She was exhausted, running on too much coffee and too little sleep. The knowledge that Bahram would be taken away in hours was crushing her. "The human precedent," Somin said. "It's time the galaxy learned what makes humanity truly special." She called for a full station assembly. Everyone gathered in the main conference hall, connected by video to the Galactic Council chambers across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species tuned in to watch. The story of the Vrakthul and the human had spread far and wide. Everyone wanted to see how it would end. Somin stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by holographic displays. Behind her, Bahram watched from his enclosure via video feed, his three eyes taking in everything. "Members of the Galactic Council," Somin began, her voice clear and strong. "You are about to make a terrible mistake. You are about to condemn an innocent person to death because you fear what you do not understand. Today I will help you understand." She activated the first holographic display. It showed Earth green and blue floating in space. "My species comes from a death world. Not as harsh as Vrak the Prime, but deadly nonetheless. Humans did not evolve as apex predators. We were prey for much of our history. But we had one advantage that changed everything." The hologram shifted, showing ancient humans gathered around a fire. "We learned to make pacts with anything. Not just with our own species. With any creature that showed compatible social behavior." Somin gestured, and the hologram changed again. Now it showed wolves. 30,000 years ago, humans encountered the apex predators of their environment. Wolves. Creatures that could kill us easily. Creatures that hunted in packs and feared nothing. Other species would have fought them or fled from them. Humans did something different. The image showed a human offering food to a wolf. We befriended them. We fed them. We learned their language. We invited them into our camps. And slowly, over generations, wolves became dogs. They chose to live with us. They chose to protect us. They became family. Ambassador Veshkar interrupted. That was domestication. Selective breeding. You changed those creatures to suit your needs. No, Somin said firmly. That came later. First came the choice. The wolves had to choose to stay with us. We didn't force them. We didn't trap them. We offered them food, safety, and companionship. We offered them pack bond, and they accepted. She changed the image again. Now it showed cats, then horses, then dozens of other animals. We did this again and again. Cats who hunted rodents in our grain stores. Horses who could kill us with one kick. Birds of prey that could tear out our eyes. Even predators like tigers and crocodiles humans have formed bonds with. Those are animals, not sentient species. Another council member objected. Are they? Somin challenged. Dogs can understand hundreds of human words. They can read our emotions. They mourn their dead. Where's the line between animal and person? And does it matter? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. Here's what matters. Humans evolved to see pack potential in everything. It's not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. It's how we survived on a world full of creatures bigger and stronger than us. We made allies. We made friends. We made family. The hologram changed to show Bahram. The footage was from his first days on the station, when he was still aggressive and afraid. When Bahram arrived here, you saw a monster. A creature that had to be contained or killed. Dr. Hana saw something different. She saw someone in pain, someone alone and afraid, someone who needed pack. The video played showing Hana sitting outside Bahram's barrier for hours, showing her bringing him food, showing the moment when she entered the containment area to treat his wound. She did what humans have done for 30,000 years. She offered pack bond to a predator, and Bahram, like the wolves before him, chose to accept. Now the hologram showed the fire rescue. Bahram saving the 3 humans, protecting them with his own body. The council watched in silence. This is not domestication, Somin said. This is not training. This is choice. Bahram chose to protect humans. He chose to be gentle. He chose to communicate. Every day he makes these choices. That's not the behavior of a dangerous animal. That's the behavior of a person who has found their pack. She turned to face the council representatives directly. You want to take Bahram to a facility where 90% of inhabitants die. You call it necessary containment. I call it murder. You are going to kill him because you are afraid of what he represents. And what does he represent? Veshkar asked coldly. Hope, Somin said simply. Hope that predators and prey can coexist. Hope that violence is a choice, not destiny. Hope that pack bonds can cross any barrier. You fear this hope because it challenges everything you believe about how the galaxy works. She pulled up more files on the hologram. After the news of Barum spread, we received 300 messages from across human space. Humans who have formed bonds with species you call dangerous. A woman who rescued an injured thorn beast and now it lives in her garden. A man who saved a void serpent hatchling and raised it. A child who befriended a creche. One of those spider-like hunters you all fear so much. The images played across the hologram. Humans and dangerous creatures living together peacefully. The council members shifted uncomfortably. We're not forcing these creatures to be gentle, Soman continued. We're giving them an alternative to violence. We're showing them that pack life is better than solitary survival. And they're choosing it. Over and over, they're choosing it. Captain Yule stood up from where he had been watching. I'd like to add something, if I may. Soman nodded and Yule stepped forward. I was skeptical about Dr. Hana's work with Barum. I thought she was being naive. I was wrong. In the weeks since Barum arrived, our station has become safer, not more dangerous. Barum has helped with repairs in areas too hazardous for most species. He's rescued those 3 people from the fire. He's even helped us understand Vrakthul biology better, which could save lives across the galaxy. Yule pulled up a data file. I've prepared a formal recommendation. I want Barum granted provisional citizenship under human jurisdiction. I want him to stay on this station as a permanent resident and member of our crew. He's earned it. Jay stood up next. I'm security chief. My job is to keep this station safe. I'm telling you officially, Barum is not a threat. He's had multiple opportunities to hurt people, and he's chosen not to. Every single time, he's safer than some of the supposedly civilized species we have on this station. One by one, the station's crew members stood up. Minji, who Barum had saved from the falling beam. Teho, who Barum had carried to safety. Day, who had spent hours learning Barum's language. Even crew members who had never met Barum personally stood in support. Salman looked at the council with satisfaction. You see? This is not one human making a foolish decision. This is an entire community saying Barum is one of us. He is Peck. The council chambers fell silent. The representatives looked at each other, communicating through their own species-specific channels. Finally, Veshkar spoke. Let us see this, Barum. Let him speak for himself. Soman nodded to Hana, who activated the two-way communication with Barum's enclosure. The Vrakthul's image appeared on the main screen, larger than life. Barum, Soman said, using the translation device. The council wants to hear from you. Tell them why you should be allowed to stay. Barum was quiet for a long moment. His scales shifted through several colors, blues and purples and grays. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. I am Vrakthul. I know what my species has done. I know the fear we bring. I carry this knowledge like a stone in my chest. He paused, gathering his thoughts. When I lost my pack in the anomaly, I wanted to die. Vrakthul are not meant to be alone. We fade without pack warmth. I was fading. I was becoming empty inside. Then came pack leader Hana. She sat with me when I was angry and afraid. She fed me when I was hungry. She fixed my hurt leg when I was in pain. She learned my language so she could speak to me. She treated me like person, not like monster. Barum's scales shifted to warm golds. I do not know what happens in Galaxy. I do not understand politics or laws. But I understand pack. Pack leader Hana gave me pack bond when I had nothing. Captain Yule gave me chance to prove I am more than my claws. Minji trusted me to save her. This station is my pack now.